Good morning, guys. Happy Tuesday. It's Erica with Not Your Average EDC, and today we are going to talk about some hard use knives. But first, I just need to clarify something from the other video that I made about the Reeve knives. I had mentioned numerous times in the video something along the lines of like, if you get a Reeve with a convex edge, blah, blah, blah. And somebody had mentioned, well, they're all sent out with a convex edge. Yes, they are. I understand that. But some of them I've noticed are way more convex than others, and that's why I was saying that. I was kind of implying, like, if you get a Reeve knife with a severe convex edge, then, you know, you may want to take these steps to improving it in terms of laying the edge back. And I just wanted to kind of, like, clarify that and just talk about these real quick before we get into it, because when I had gotten this 21, the edge was severely convexed, almost to the point where it just wouldn't cut or slice, and I had mentioned that. It was a very rounded edge, and that's why I laid it back to 15 degrees per side. It was really important for me to do that. Same with my Inkosi that I had, the black one that I tested for a month. I have a ton of content on that as well, and I had to lay the edge back to 15 degrees per side. Super Steel Steve actually taught me how to do that, and I ended up doing it, and it made it much better. However, when I got my 31, again, the edge was convexed, but not nearly as bad as those other two. This actually, I did a whole month of testing on this, and I did not end up laying the edge back because I felt that it was performing fine with the amount of convex that they put on this one. And I know that they're all supposed to be the same, but unfortunately, they're just not. Like, it is very hard to make an edge the same every time if you're doing it by hand. So this one, this convex edge was much more, it wasn't as steep as my other two that I had experienced. And I think that's also why when I tested this, I had mentioned numerous times that this blade was performing much better. It was outperforming my 21, right? I was saying in terms of the steel, the S45VN was an improvement over the S35VN, and I said that in my review, and, you know, all of my videos, you can go back and watch those. You know, this was doing much better, and I noticed a difference. And it wasn't necessarily because, well, it was a combination of the S45 being an improvement, but also the edge being just way less steep of a convex compared to my Inkosi and my 21. However, if we take these now in the state that they're in, this S35 VN blade shape, you know, with a Sabenza, this one laid back 15 degrees per side at a V grind now, even though it's a softer, lesser steel, this will outperform the new S45 in a convex. Does that make any sense? Because, you know, this is superior in terms of the steel that it's in. They upgraded to the S45, and it has a convex edge. But even though it's a better steel, the geometry on this one cuts better and is actually a better performer because it's thinner behind the edge, even though it's a lesser steel. Does that make more sense? That's kind of what I was trying to get to, guys. Was like geometry cuts. And yes, you can upgrade your steel and have a superior steel, but if the edge is convex to the point where it can hinder certain cuts, you know, making a V bevel and a thinner one, even in a lesser steel, might actually perform better. And that was kind of the whole point of the video, but I was not super clear on some of the stuff, and I continuously forget that new people are coming to the channel and haven't been following the entire Reeve journey. However, let's talk about these a little more because people seem to really like that video, and I was getting more and more questions as people watched. So one of the questions that I got, and one of the DMs that I got as well, was like, okay, we're seeing that you can evolve the use of a Reeve knife, right? Like, it is built to be a hard use knife, even though it is not necessarily marketed as one. Especially in the EDC community, they're generally viewed as like a grail knife and pocket jewelry, but they really are made to be like a hard use working knife. That's what the name implies. So let's move past the pocket jewelry thing, right? Let's look at these as actual tools, actual knives that they were meant to be. With that being said, are they more of an EDC knife or are they more of a hard use knife? That's kind of the question I was getting, was like, well, where do these fall now that we have removed all the myths? Where do these actually fit now in the community? It depends on absolutely which edge you decide to put on your knife. That's really the main factor here, because these are sold with a convex grind to give, thickness behind the edge and stability, essentially toughness, right? You are way less likely to damage your edge if you have a convex edge, and that's why they put those convex edges on there. They're meant to be working knives. But if you decide to alter yours or one of yours like I did, and you put a V edge on there and you really thin it out, is that altering the use? In my opinion, so far, no. I am not noticing with use that thinning that edge out, removing the convex properties, I'm not noticing that it's actually hindering or taking away from the original use of this knife. I'm not noticing that the edge is less stable or less tough. I think it's too early to definitively answer that, but generally speaking, because of the steel choices that they chose and because of the lower heat treat, I'm not finding that it is deforming or anything any more so than the convex edge. Now, that's not to say that it could at some point, but generally speaking, it seems like this can still be a hard use knife if you do end up thinning behind the edge. And that's just what I'm finding. This feels more like a regular EDC knife now. You can feel the difference when you're cutting through material with a thinner edge. It's like a whole different world. So I guess if you thin the edge out and I had to choose where I would put this, I would choose typical EDC knife, and then if you leave the edge convex from the factory and you continue with that edge, maybe this one would be put into hard use and they'd be kind of in two different tiers. Because at least for me, I'll be honest, guys, the Sebenza, even though it is, all over the world as the best EDC knife and people don't really beat on them a ton, at least you don't see it, I do group this with my hard use knives. I very much find many similarities between the Emerson Mini A100 and the Chris Reeve Sebenza and even the Benchmade 940. I actually do put these all together in a group when I am thinking about them. They all have very similar properties. Now, obviously, you can nitpick and say they're all totally different knives, of course, but they really aren't that far off. Out of these three, the Sebenza is the most slicey out of them all, but build-wise, strength-wise, ergonomically speaking, blade shape, all that stuff, they're not terribly different. The Sebenza is just as reliable and hard use as the Mini A100 and the Benchmade 940, and if anything, it's actually the most hard use out of all of them in terms of overall strength, because this lock, I will tell you, is superior and stronger to this liner lock or this axis lock. Both of these two will fail you before this one does, and that's just a fact. You can't argue me on that. This is literally tiny omega springs that you can easily break if you wanted to, and you could easily fail this liner lock if you beat on it hard enough. Those are just facts, guys. I want you to try to fail that titanium frame lock. There's no way you're going to. It's just not going to happen. So if anything, this is the hardest using knife out of these three. It just doesn't necessarily scream that in your face because it is a very elegant looking hard use knife. And that blade shape is very beautiful. It's hollow ground and it doesn't necessarily, shout hard use like these two. But I do group it 100% with my hard use knives. They're really not that far off from each other in terms of design and intended use. I have tested all three of these for a month, and this did just as much poking and prying and drilling and twisting and scraping as these two without fail. It just did not fail on me at all, ever, and it did a lot of really hard work. I have, videos on all of that. I recorded a lot of interesting tasks with these knives. But look at them, guys. They're not too different. They're all brethren, These are very straight, slimline, hard use knives. Absolutely. And even if you do thin the edge and make it a V grind on your Sebenza, if you do that, I don't necessarily see how it's going to greatly, impact the knife negatively. I've had this one for years now, and this is the one, I think I actually have it on film. I took this one and like shredded gravel bags with it, and really, really messed up the edge. But as you can see, we were able to fully fix it and actually improve it by laying the edge back. But it's not like this is any less. You know what I'm saying? Like these really are work knives. They're incredible. And the one good thing about the S35 and the S45 are that they're extremely forgiving. They're steels that are really easy to fix, especially if you do get nicks, rolls, chips, etc. I mean, I annihilated this blade, to be honest. Like I destroyed it. And yes, it did take me an hour to fix it, but it was fixable 100% with hand tools, with sharpening stones. I didn't need a machine to fix that edge. And that's the great thing about the Reeve knives. They're kind of meant to be fixed in the field, even if you put a big dent in it or something, or a roll. They are meant to be fixed very easily so that you don't have to worry about beating on your knives. So they are hard use. They are fantastic. They absolutely fit in with the big boys of the community, the Emerson Mini A100 and the Benchmade 940. If anything, they are, superior in a lot of senses. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of clarify that, yes, all Reeve knives will come to you with a convex edge. It's just like by human nature, some of them will be more rounded than others. It's just what happens, and that's totally fine. So go use your shit today, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you on the next video. Love you all.